Good afternoon, good morning, and welcome. It is Monday, the 20th of January, 2025, and welcome to this week's Monday Momentum. We do this every Monday at the same time. The whole purpose of Monday Momentum's all around mindset. Just before we get started, just a bit of housekeeping. Mike and Don, if you can just say hello, and can you just let us know that you can type yes in the box if you can hear myself, Mike, and Don, please? That would be appreciated before we get
Hi,
started.
folks.
Hey, everybody.
Awesome. Just put yes in the box. Yeah, brilliant. James, hi, James. Good to see you, buddy. Hi, Lauren. Yeah, just put a yes in the box if you can hear us yet. Or Larry, Lionel. Brilliant. Yeah, it seems that we're all good. Hi, Larry. Good to see you. Hi, Ryan. Yep. Looks like we're good to go. Awesome. I want to share a story with you. I was talking to a recruiter last Tuesday or Wednesday, and he shared this story with me that kind of made me smile and prompted me to share it with you. His name's Richard, and he was pitching to a new client. It's a high-profile tech startup, and they were looking to fill a critical CTO role for the organization. Um, and Richard had come really prepared for the call, and the client started to describe the ideal client, and Richard leaned in and said with enthusiasm, "I know exactly what you need." He then launched into a passionate monologue about the candidate he'd interviewed only a few weeks earlier, a brilliant CTO with all the right skills. Richard was practically selling the candidate like a shiny new car. He was so enthused about it. What was interesting, though, the client sat back with her arms folded, the face neutral, sensing that something was it was a bit off. Richard just powered through, doubling down on how perfect this candidate was. Finally, the candidate interrupted and he said, "Listen, Richard, it's great to see you're so enthusiastic, but honestly, you've missed something here." And Richard froze. Missed what, he thought. The client said, "I didn't say this earlier, but we've had a bad experience with a previous candidate that we had in this role who had all the technical skills but lacked emotional intelligence. What we really care about is how this person will lead people." Now, Richard had a choice here. He could either panic or pivot. He chose to pivot. He smiled, he paused, and he said, "Do you know what? That's on me. My bad. I got so excited to share a solution to you that I didn't listen as carefully as I should have done. Let's rewind. Tell me more about the strong leader that you're looking for your team." And that interaction sort of broke the tension in the room. The client leaned forward, relaxed, and said, "I really appreciate that, Richard. Look, here's what we've been struggling with." He then went on to describe their frustrations and trust issues that they were really looking for in a high quality CTO. By the end of the meeting, not only did Richard have all the information needed for the right candidate, the client agreed to work with him, but because the client trusted him more because of his humility and willingness to listen. And there's a message in that for all of us. And the message in that story, rather, is emotional intelligence. Richard's initial mistake showed a lack of self-awareness and empathy. He was so focusing on showcasing his expertise that he forgot to truly listen. Quick question: have you ever done that yourself, where you get so enthused about what the client's telling you, what's happening, that y- you get carried away with yourself and do more talking than listening? Just give me a yes or a no, and if you've ever been guilty of that. Don, yeah. Brian, yeah. Excellent. Tell you what, let me just come to a few people. Ryan, let me come to you first of all, then you, Don. Just give me an example of where that's happened.
Did you say Ryan?
I did, yeah. And then Don.
You guys can tell I'm a chatty Cathy, and it happens to me all the time. You talk about turning business away that's not in our wheelhouse, that where we're like, this is not something we can help you with, and we can help, which point you in the wrong direction. And I'm constantly guilty of being like, oh yeah, I'm sure we can do that. We can do that, and then I just start talking about our value add, and that hasn't been successful for me particularly.
No,
And it's my
no,
own
no.
fault.
Yeah, hey, listen, Ryan, we've all done it, buddy. We've all done it. I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. What about you, Don?
I used to do it a lot more than I do it now. Struggling to come up with an immediate example. There were two things that I thought about though. One was one of my initial sales trainers over almost 3 decades ago said you've got two ears and one mouth for a reason. And I always loved that and took it to heart and tried to do twice as much listening as speaking ever since then.
Mm.
And I just think sometimes we get out ahead of ourselves, kind of get over our skis, as the phrase goes.
I like that too.
And
Yeah.
we're so passionate that we can solve an issue, we can fix that. I can fix that. That we don't hear the entire story. That's where I've gotten into maybe trouble in the past, is where I'm making some assumption. I'm making too many assumptions, and I think I can fix the problem sooner than I've been given. It's kind of like a doctor, I guess, with a diagnosis. If the lab tests haven't come back yet, how are they really going to do that? So,
That's
yeah,
right.
there's a lot of thoughts that conjures up, but I'm sorry I can't come up with a
Yeah. No,
specific.
that's okay. And apparently, I know some of you are going to find this hard to believe, but men are worse at this than women, which, as I said, some of you may find very hard to believe. I was shocked at that statistic, but women are now laughing knowingly that apparently men have always got the answer. Just very quick, let's come to Mike. We'd just love to get your thoughts before we move on, Mike.
As you were saying that, I was thinking that when you and I first started working together, and made the decision that I was going to ditch everything else apart from food ingredients. And about 3 months after we started working together, one of my old clients from the banking sector reached out to me and said, "Can you help us fill this role?" And I said, "Yeah, of course we can." And it took me away, and it was like the law of easy money, wasn't it? The problem was it took me away from what I was trying to build. And any candidates that I found for this role served me no purpose in the future. And there was no
Mm.
spin off that at all. And it was very difficult. And whilst I was doing that, I wasn't doing and focusing on the sector that I was um, trying to build in. And I mean, and I had an opportunity last year outside of my sector, and I said, I didn't think about it. I said, no, I can't do it. Go to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because I think it's like we want to be all things to all people, and it's having that self-awareness, particularly if you're working in a niche, having that self-awareness that you can't be and you shouldn't want to be all things to all people.
You can't be, and you rightly said, and that's the whole thing with emotional intelligence. It's a secret weapon for successful communication within recruitment. At its core, if you think about it, recruitment's about building trust and fostering strong relationships with clients and candidates. Emotional intelligence ensures that you don't just focus on the transaction. So that role comes in, we're looking for a scaffolder with 10 years experience. You've never done it before, and you're nodding, going, yeah, I can do that, because you're thinking about the transaction. But what you really want to do is connect with the person sitting across you. When you're working with clients, um, emotional intelligence allows you to uncover their deeper needs beyond the job description. Because ultimately, that's where you're going to get the client to move. If you can really understand their needs, by demonstrating empathy, you can address their frustrations. Like if they're struggling to fill a key role, and that's done with active listening, a key skill of EI, emotional intelligence. And you pick up on those subtle cues about what they value most, whether it's speed, cultural fit, retention. Also, I think I know with emotional intelligence, it's about that self-regulation as well, ensuring that you stay composed during the objections that you sometimes get from the client. And rather than taking it personally, example, you're more expensive than other recruiters. What you can do is run that story. Oh, I'm more expensive than more than other recruiters. What's actually happened is one client has said that you're more expensive. It doesn't mean that you're more expensive more than all the other recruiters out there. Added to which, it's very rare that a client selects a recruiter purely on price alone. But what we can do is we can get quite defensive about it and take it personally. But it's not just with the hiring manager, it's also with the candidate as well. A candidate who feels they're heard are more likely to trust you. And there's a great little thing you can do. If anybody here that's using using Zoom, but apologies, I'm not so familiar with Teams as whether it does it. But with Zoom, with AI, it will tell you what percentage of the time that you were talking and what percentage of the time you were listening and what percentage of the time the other person was talking as well. And the coach that we use, if we're selling to somebody, we should be at around about 40%. Now, it sounds counterintuitive if you say, what, you talk less than the buyer, but that's absolutely right. So when we get our calls reviewed, one of the things they're looking for is how often, what percentage of the time you were talking. And if you've got Zoom, and again, if anybody that uses Team here, please correct me because I don't know much about Team, but I know for a fact you can do it with Zoom because we do it all the time. Turn it on. Yeah, Firefly does that in Zoom. Absolutely, Don. Yeah, turn it on and just look at how much of the conversation was taken up by you. And if it's over 40%, you were probably talking too much. But here's the thing, unless you're measuring it, you often don't know. Yeah, I just want to get a few people's thoughts and feedback. Jane, I'm going to come to you and to you, Larry, for your thoughts and feedback on what we just covered there. Jane, just let you know your, what's the word? Your mic isn't on.
All right. What was the question? I jumped in late.
Oh, did you, have you only just come in, Jane?
I'm sorry?
Have you only just come in?
No, I've been in for a little bit, but I didn't hear the original question.
Okay, just wanted to get your thoughts and observation of what we talked about so far in terms of emotional intelligence, and perhaps at times we get too enthusiastic and end up talking too much.
Okay. I totally agree with, I think, what Don had said about 2 ears and 1 mouth. I've used that for years to keep me in check. Totally, we have to listen more than talk, just without a doubt, no matter what. And I do that by asking questions, and so then they go on and elaborate because they like to hear themselves talk, and they prefer that. So, so the EQ, I'm totally all about that.
Awesome.
That's really important.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that, Jane. Thank you. Good morning, Larry.
Morning from icy Chicagoland.
Really?
It's I think it's we're up to -4 right now, Fahrenheit. So I don't know what that would be in Celsius, but we just call it damn cold.
Okay. In the UK, that's a summer for us. We'll walk around with t-shirts in that weather over
yeah,
here.
yeah.
I'm in Chicago as well, freezing to
Okay.
death.
Yeah. It's a little bit chilly, but hey, you know. Yeah, like everyone else said, I think we really need to listen more because that's when you really find out. And like Jane said, by letting the other person talk, whether it's either a client or a candidate, everybody likes to hear themselves talk. And I think by us asking questions, we can find out a lot more than just the supposed like checklists, that they want from this job, from the job description. It's all the nuanced stuff that they don't have in the job description. And that's when you can really make a fit. Because a lot of times
Yeah.
you can match them up, bullet point by bullet point, but like the one the case that you mentioned, previously where the person really needs to listen to his team, blah 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 blah. You only get that by really listening to the people and like Jane said, asking good questions.
Yeah. Thanks, Larry. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So, emotional intelligence. I want you to make a note of this. It was introduced by a chap called Daniel Goleman back in the 80s, I believe. But two things here: the emotional intelligence. Recognize, understand, and manage your emotions. Number one. So it's your ability to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions. And number two, understand and influence the emotion of others. I can guarantee right now, people, friends, relatives, who have a very high emotional intelligence, but you also know people with very low emotional intelligence, and they're unable to do those things. But it really mattered in recruitment. It really does. And there are 5 components of emotional intelligence. The first one is self-awareness. That's the foundations of EI. It's about recognizing your emotions and how they and understand how they influence your behavior and your decision making. So just for a minute, think about, I'm going to come to Philly on this one. Think about a challenging conversation you've had with a client or a candidate. I just want you to share the emotion that came up and how that influenced your response. So, challenging conversation you've had with a client or a candidate, and how that influenced your response. So, the most obvious one is that you've done a good job with a particular candidate. Let's say they go for the interview, the client comes back to you and says, "Yeah, they're great. We're going to make them an offer." Um, they make the offer, and then the candidate comes back and says to you, "I'm not going to accept. I've been given a counter offer, another 20,000 a year, so I'm going to stay where I am." And you've worked your butt off. In particular, if you're a contingent recruiter, you've done a lot of work on that assignment. So I want to come to a few is the emotions that come up when that happens. I'll come to you, Lauren, for your thoughts, and to you, James. What's the emotion that comes up as an example of that? And as a recruiter, a contingent recruiter, you would have experienced that.
Raw, yeah, because I'm going through this right now and I'm
Are you really?
very much so, not the candidate, but because the client took 3 weeks to release the contract. And I thought the man was going to sit there and wait. Obviously, he's got another job. And anyway, I was pissed off, but I said, do you know what? I said, if you maybe communicated better what the timeframes would be, and maybe if someone from your team reached out, I think we could have secured this candidate going forward. I think that should be our plan of action. That's what I said. I tried to say it in a nicer way, but my heart was like, that was actually
Just
really.
put yes in the box if you've experienced that, because I'm sure we've all experienced something like that where you're going, I don't freaking believe it. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah. So, what were the emotions that you were feeling at that time, Lauren?
Yeah, I was really frustrated, mostly because I said to the client, hey, can someone from your team reach out, speak to the candidate, keep the candidate warm, keep them bought into the process. And there was almost minimal feedback back on that.
Mm,
And then, because we've been looking for, well, they were actually looking for this role. It's been almost a year that we've been looking to fill the role. And then they lost the candidate. And it was like, oh, oopsie daisy, I don't have to pay you now. I was thinking, wow, this is really painful. And yeah,
mm,
so I was annoyed. I was obviously annoyed because I think the situation could have been managed, and I actually think it would have been a different outcome had they
mm.
in contact. That's what was frustrating. Not they took another offer, but because I don't think that had to have been the outcome.
Yeah. As I said, emotional intelligence is recognizing, understanding, and managing your emotions and understand and influencing the emotion of others, which, look, I want to be clear, it's easier said than done. But one of the things that you can do, because as I said, a lot of it is around self-awareness, is ask yourself this question. And so part of getting on top of emotional intelligence is reflecting. So a question that you could ask yourself is, what did I do well? And what could I do differently? Knowing what I know now, what could I do differently? Because I don't guarantee there will be a lesson in there for you, Lauren. Absolutely guarantee. But you do need to reflect on that and go, shoot, I'm really pissed with that. There's some things I did well, but there's some things I could have done better. And ultimately, however you feel in terms of your emotions, you also have to acknowledge that you're responsible for your own emotions. Sure, we can say the bloody candidate let me down or the client let me down, but ultimately, how you decide to feel is your choice. And you have to acknowledge that as well. I'm pissed. You can say I'm pissed because of the client or the candidate, but actually you've made a decision to be pissed, or any other emotion that you decide to feel. Does that make sense, Lauren?
Yes, it does. It does.
Yeah. It's challenging, I know, but it's it's the moment that you acknowledge that you're going to these are my emotions, I control them.
Yeah.
And look, there'll be times you might be in the call and when you got that phone call where you're really pissed, but it's worth taking that time out just to reflect and say, what did I do well and what would I do differently, knowing what I know now,
Mm.
and acknowledging that however you feel is a choice that you've made. But thanks for sharing, Lon. I really appreciate that. Thank you. James, what about you, buddy? James Hyatt Smith. Yes, sorry, yeah.
Actually, I just done a post about something along those lines today, funnily enough, so, which is based off a conversation I had with a potential client a couple of weeks ago, where they had a very senior individual that they had agreed to join them. and uh, it got to weeks before they were due to join. They didn't start involving them in internal meetings and sharing confidential documentation. I think got the dreaded phone call of, sorry, but I'm not going to be starting. I've had another offer which I've accepted. And I classified it as you go through the essentially the grief process, right? It's that anger, frustration, it's the disillusionment before eventually coming to acceptance. But it's like losing a pet or an animal or a loved one or whatever. It's the grief process that you go through. It's a real emotional roller coaster. Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah. Oh, so what was the main emotion that you felt when you got that phone call?
Well, luckily it wasn't me, but I mean, it's disbelief is probably the first emotion of, and then it's how could they do this? Disbelief turns quickly to anger, it turns quickly to, well, blame and so on.
Yeah, it's another one, blame. Yeah. And that's really the time that you need to self-reflect and go, what could I do differently? Know what I know now, and ask yourself that question. But I really appreciate you sharing that, Jane. Thank you. So self-regulation, motivation in emotional intelligence is driven by intrinsic goals like growth, purpose, and achieving excellence. I've had the pleasure of working with and communicating with thousands of recruitment and search business owners for nearly 3 decades now. So I want to share with you the common motivations that fuel recruitment business owners' motivation. Then I'll come around. If there's any more that you want to add, please let me know. But here are the most common ones. The first one is financial freedom and success. Recruitment business owners are often driven by the desire to achieve financial success. They see their business as a pathway to high income, profitability, and ultimately financial independence. So often it's not the money in of itself that's what you want, it's what the money gives you. And the money ultimately gives us freedom. That's what we want. The other one is then autonomy and control. So we're motivated by the opportunity to be our own boss, to have our own rules, make independent decisions, and steer our business in the direction that we want to without having to answer to anybody else. So autonomy and control is the second most popular one. The third one is building something of value. There's often a strong desire to create a legacy. Recruitment business owners want to build sustainable, successful business that they can be proud of. Now, it might mean they're going to scale it or sell it or just pass it on to a member of family. And for some, they say, I don't even want to do that, actually. I just, at the end of the day, I know that I've built something of value and I want to walk off into the sunset very happy. The next one is passion for solving problems. So recruitment business owners are often motivated by the challenge of solving the client's hiring needs and finding the perfect candidate. Especially as some recruiters enjoy getting those tough to fill roles. They thrive on being seen as a trusted advisor who's guaranteed to deliver results. The next one is personal fulfillment. Many people are passionate about helping people, but they take pride in changing lives by placing candidates in roles that advance their career. And I was talking to Don probably about 18 months ago about one of Don's personal fulfillment, because the area that Don works in is making a difference in that area. The next one is recognition and influence. Surprisingly, it's quite low down, but being seen as an expert, having that recognition with your peers, earning the respect of your clients and peers and candidates is a powerful motivator, and wanting to be known as a go-to figure in your industry. So they're the most common ones. Just very quickly, in fact, I'll go around the room. So Mike, I'm going to come to you first of all, then to you, Orla. Any other motivations for you and Pravinder? So Mike, Orla, and Pravinder. Any other motivations? Anybody else got any? Please feel free to share them.
I think it's around the financial freedoms thing, but it's not just freedom financially. It's freedom, and that comes to, autonomy and control is being able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And part of that is a financial freedom, but part of it is also a time freedom, isn't it?
Really good point. Yeah.
You go to work, you got to be in the office between 9 and 5. Well, I don't have to be. I want to go 3 o'clock today. I'll go 3 o'clock today. And
Yeah.
having the ability to do that and plan my life it's another it's time freedom, isn't it?
Yeah, really good point. If you want to pick the kids up from school or go to the school play or the sports day or whatever, you can. You don't have to ask for permission for somebody else to attend your child's event. Yeah, it's a really good point. That time freedom is a great point. Thanks, Mike. What about you, Ola? What would it be for anything else for you?
I think I agree with Mike. I mean, financial freedom gives you everything you want in
Mm,
life, and you can get up and go wherever you want. I'm coming from West Africa, Sierra Leone. I like to go there now and again, and I like to have that freedom where I can just get up, pack up, and go, and
yeah.
spend a month out there. I can work from there with my computer, and people will not know where I am. And if I
Mm,
want to go on a cruise, I can jump and go on a cruise. So financial freedom gives you so much clout in life. It's unbelievable.
mm, yeah. Excellent. Thanks for sharing, Ola. Thank you. Govinda, what would it be for you? Would it be any of those that we've mentioned, or does anything else for you, buddy?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And looking at what I have on my dream board is first is financial freedom, number one. And as Ola said, that gives you a lot of options on other areas, like Mike said, time freedom. For me, changing other people's lives and how many people are better off because of what I did. And that's a measure of success.
Lovely. Yeah, that's beautiful.
My
Other
own.
people are better off because of what you do. Excellent. Excellent. Thanks for that. Don, can I just come to you very quickly? Can you just share? Yeah, it was. I think. Yeah, so you'll be. Yeah, can you just share what your motivation is in terms of what you do, why you do what you do?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's already been said. The personal fulfillment's a pretty big one for me personally. And the only one I'd add to everything else that's been said, because they're all motivators, but one that I don't know is particularly appealing to me personally is doing things I haven't done before. So I enjoy stretching
Mm,
the limits of my comfort zone and getting
mm,
out of it frequently.
mm.
It's fun.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
provides I don't know, it's almost like a stimulant.
Mm,
I suspect that that may be one for a lot of people also, but yeah,
yeah.
that would be one more that I'd add to the
And,
list.
and and the other one that you shared with me, because I know you work within oncology in terms of recruitment. I know you were really passionate about making a difference there as well, weren't you? Aren't you?
Absolutely. A lot of our website copy and the talk that I have with people that are in the industry that I'm in are passionate about human health. You can make money in various industries. In ours, you have the added benefit of if you develop a drug that saves people's lives or makes their lives better, that's a significant contribution that you can actually see manifest itself very clearly. So that helps to get me out of the bed every morning.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Excellent, beautiful. Yeah, thank you again. So EI is being aware of these things and then having those social skills to build relationships, navigate conflicts, and inspire others. So strong relationships help you win. Retained assignments with clients, negotiating for higher deals, building loyalty amongst your team and amongst your candidates. So a tip here: focus on clear communication and be intentional about the outcome that you want. And part of the outcome should be, I want to build a strong relationship here. Because the moment you get a client and a candidate that feels that they're understood, my apologies, they will trust you with their business because this individual understands what my challenge is and what's going on, be it the client or be it the candidate. So as I said, to wrap up really, some things you can do for developing, practice self-reflection. Start each day by setting intentions. Start the day by saying, my intention today is, and at the end of the day, reflect on the emotional triggers and key interactions. Embrace feedback. I can't emphasize this enough. And again, I come back to sales calls. One of the things probably haven't said it for a while. I really encourage you to, if you're doing your calls on Teams, Zoom, or whatever method that you're using, and you're recording your calls, once a week, go back and listen to the recording of your calls. Check in how long you were talking for. Check in on the non-verbal cues, if you've got the camera on, of the person that you're talking to. Were they engaged? Were they a bit lost? And did you pick up on it? I promise you, if you just get into the habit of doing that, it will improve your communication skills. Check in, and I have been guilty of this, where somebody's talking to you and you're doing something else. So I'm making notes, so I'm not looking at the camera, I'm looking down. But if you watch it back, it doesn't look like you're engaged. It looks like you're not really listening to it, but what you're doing is you're making notes. And I've got no excuse. I'm using AI that's taking notes. The notes I'm writing is a question to ask. But the person that I'm talking to, all they can see is me looking down, scribbling. So it looks like you're not paying attention to what they're saying. Just being aware that will serve you. Just little things like that. I would really encourage you to do that. Practice empathy, and I want to be clear about this. Empathy, there's a massive difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy, in engaging conversation where you focus solely on understanding their perspective. Can't remember the author, but it'll come back to me as I'm talking to you. But the key to communication is to understand exactly what they're saying and what their issue is. So final question for today. What one specific action will you take today to improve your emotional intelligence as a recruitment business owner? What's the one action step that you specifically think, yeah, that's something I can do to improve my emotional intelligence? I'm going to come to you, Dan, and to you, Lionel, and a few other people, actually. So don't think I'm not going to come to you. I'm going to come to a few people. But you, first of all, Dan, what's the action step that you're going to take to improve your emotional intelligence?
Hey, Terry, I think it's going to be, I know it's obvious and you said it, but it's that self-awareness is actually being present enough in the conversation. Because I have a habit of going on autopilot and asking questions. And it's being self-aware enough that I need to be present. I've just set up my co-pilot for note-taking, which is going to have a massive impact for me. Instead of scribbling notes that I can't read after, that I can actually now be present. So I think it's just to catch myself to actually be self-aware, because we know it, we all know it. But am I going to be self-aware and present in the meeting? That's it.
Do you do your calls on Zoom or Teams? What platform do you use for your call?
I use Teams.
Yeah. And do you have the camera on?
Always have the camera on, yeah.
You always have the camera on. Have you ever watched back your recordings of your calls?
No.
Okay. There's always a reluctance for people to do this. I think I know why, but anyway. Go and watch.
I've never thought to do it, and I've only just set up all the co-pilot that now records the calls. So now I've got no excuse not to go back and have a cringeworthy listen to myself.
Yeah. And I assume it's the same on Teams. Well, on Zoom, you can speed it up. So if the call lasted for 30 minutes, you can increase the speed. So it's only you're going to listen to it in 15 minutes rather than yeah. And you don't have to listen to the whole call. You might want to listen to the introduction. You might want to listen to the close or the commitment that you made, or just watching. As you're watching it, when there's non-verbal cues where they're disengaged, or you've disengaged as they're talking as well. There are so many takeaways.
I've no doubt there is, and I'm not sure if anyone listens to podcasts, but there's been a guy who's been on the PPD podcast and Stephen Bartlett, the Diary of a CEO, and he's a master at the non-verbal cues. It's absolutely fantastic just to be watching and listening when someone's trying to think of what to say. They look a certain way, and it's understanding when someone's thinking and when someone's telling you a lie, because it's actually quite obvious when someone looks in a different direction, especially around salary or things that have gone wrong. It's good that we're kind of aware of reading those non-verbal cues if we can be present enough to do so.
That's right. Absolutely. Excellent. Thanks for that, Dan. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Hi there. Now, what about you? What's your big takeaway?
Something that I really like to practice with more intention this year is probably just active listening. Sometimes when you're on these calls, you are so busy composing a response in your mind that you aren't just presently listening. So that's definitely something that I'd like to work on. Previously, I've been sometimes thrown in the deep end where it's like 10 minutes before the call. It's the introduction call. pitch them, bring them on with no prep, no nothing. Boss can't make it, step in, take the call. And then you sometimes like just overcompensating to fill the air, fill the room with a bit of noise. And then it's like, hang on, just slow it down, take a step back, be a little bit more intentional, actively listen while they're speaking, and then respond after.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That active listening, and listening with intentions. Really good point there. Thank you. Yeah. Really good point. Thank you. Ryan, what about you? What's your biggest takeaway, buddy?
I didn't know that you could have Zoom tell you what percentage of the time you're talking, so we're gonna start that. That's really key. It's good to measure it. If you're not measuring it, you're not paying attention to it. So
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Ryan. Look, that's it for today. So, as with all these calls, go away and implement something from at least one thing from these calls. Cheers, folks.
Cheers.